Good evening and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Lauren Rowe. This November, you'll be asked to make many crucial political decisions. Who would have thought that deciding who will lead our country would be the easy choice? You'll also be asked to make some controversial choices about what many people consider to be faith and values. But what I found when researching the Florida Marriage Protection Amendment is much more complicated than a simple test of what you believe is right and wrong. And many believe it goes much further than a simple law saying, who can say, I do? That is what our debate is about tonight. Let's get started with our panel discussion. John Stemberger is president of the Florida Family Policy Council, which describes itself as a state-based pro-life, pro-family, pro-marriage educational advocacy group associated with Dr. James Dobson and Focus on the Family. Today, he is here promoting the Marriage Protection Amendment proposed by FloridaForMarriage.org. Nadine Smith is the executive director for Equality Florida. They say they are a statewide education and advocacy organization dedicated to eliminating discrimination based on sexual orientation, race, gender, and class. She is here tonight representing the group Fairness for All Families, which was created to fight the amendment. Under her name, you will see VoteNoFlorida.org. I've listed the, websites that each one of these representatives wants you to take a look at under their names. So by the end of this show, you can go online and research both sides to your own satisfaction. I've been reading a lot over the past couple of days trying to bone up for the show. I'm not a lawyer, but a lot of this does come down to legalities. I'm going to begin with you, John. First of all, it is already illegal in the state of Florida to marry someone of the same sex. So why do we need this amendment in the Constitution?
Yeah, great question. For the same reason that Massachusetts needed it, and that they had valid marriage laws, and activist judges sought to act as social change agents instead of intellectual academic arbiters of the law, and basically struck down their marriage laws. We're in this for the long run. Governor Chris has 2 Supreme Court judges that he's going to pick in 2009. So we're not going to wait around for an activist judge to strike down the institution of marriage. We want to protect it now in the state constitution so that no judge can later on use the state constitution to strike down the valid marriage laws.
It has a much broader impact than John would have people believe. This doesn't simply codify existing Florida law that says same-sex couples cannot marry. It goes much further. It takes rights away and blocks any advancement of rights for all unmarried Floridians. And that's why Fairness for All Families is actually a coalition of more than 200 organizations, including the Florida Alliance for Retired Americans and NAACP and unions, because they understand that at the heart of this is about banning benefits for unmarried Floridians, whether they're gay or straight. And in Florida, that means it'll disproportionately hurt a lot of seniors who don't remarry after they've been widowed and they are in a new relationship because they'll be penalized financially. But this, most Floridians, like most Americans, believe that people who make a commitment to each other, agree to take responsibility and take care of one another, ought to have some kind of protections, whether you call that civil union or domestic partnership. There's a fundamental belief that, yes, you ought to be able to have access to, the hospital room of your partner when they're on their deathbed. You ought to have certain basic protections, and that the government shouldn't make it harder for you to take care of the people you love. What this amendment does is puts the government in the way, makes it an obstacle to taking care of the people you love. And the more people realize how far-reaching this is, the more people realize that this is an amendment that we need to reject.
John, do you want this amendment to stop benefits for people in civil unions and domestic partnership situations?
Yeah. Let me just say that, with all due respect, that's really utter nonsense, and all the legal authority demonstrate that this amendment will have no effect at all on domestic partnerships. The amendment it defines marriage as the union of a man and a woman. It prohibits polygamy, group marriage, but it does not interfere with any existing domestic partnerships.
Wait, hold on. Can we look at the amendment real quick? Because I have a question about that.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's take a look at the text of the amendment, and it says, inasmuch as marriage is the union of one man and one woman as husband and wife, no other legal union that is treated as marriage or the substantial equivalent thereof shall be valid or recognized. Here's my question for you, John. Hold on. No other legal union that is treated as marriage or the substantial equivalent thereof. If civil unions and domestic partnership are not the equivalent thereof, or the substantial equivalent thereof, what is?
Well, first of all, we don't have civil unions in Florida. We do have domestic partnerships. And the domestic partnerships grant a very small bundle of rights. The right to bury your partner, the right to visitation in the hospital, visitation if you're in jail. It does not interfere with those rights. The Supreme Court has ruled on this and said it does not interfere with these domestic partnerships. The Second District Court of Appeals has ruled on this in Broward County when someone tried to challenge the domestic partnerships under Florida's law, which our language fairly mirrors that. And so we've added an extra phrase, substantial equivalent, to make it crystal clear that the domestic partnerships are not going to be interfered with,
so
which makes it more ironic that they're saying that it is.
So what's the point of the amendment?
Here's the bottom line. They have lost every one of these amendments in the entire country. If they talk about gay marriage, they lose. So they have to have a scare tactic to scare seniors, tell people they're going to lose their benefits. It's utter nonsense. The bottom line is that this amendment will define marriage, but it does not prohibit the government from extending benefits to unmarried or to gay partners.
So you're clearly saying, hold on, Nadine, you're clearly saying that this is just a moral statement.
No, it's not merely a moral statement.
Okay.
It codifies the existing law, takes the existing statute, and it puts it into the Constitution. It does nothing new. It does something old and preserves the institution of marriage. That's what it does.
What do you think about that,
Nadine?
Nadine?
Well, it's completely false, and I think John knows it. And first of all, this kind of amendment has been defeated. It was defeated in 2006 in Arizona, and the polling shows that, you know, our numbers are actually better than Arizona, because I think people are waking up to what this does. It's a mean-spirited amendment that has the effect of banning benefits. Now, what John tap danced around just now was, you asked him, does this prohibit civil unions? And the answer to that is yes. Does it prohibit domestic partnership? It does prohibit the kind of comprehensive domestic partnership that other states have passed. Right now in Tallahassee, there's debate on a domestic partnership bill and an end-of-life decision-making bill that would be prohibited if this was allowed to pass. What he wants to evade is the fact that it doesn't simply codify existing Florida law. This is what the Office of Economic and Demographic Research, basically the Florida legislature's own analysis, it says, the amendment provides no definition for the phrase substantial equivalent thereof, which lends to the ambiguity of the wording of the proposed amendment. And it goes on to talk about how, you know, this has this can have the same impact that we've seen in other states. In Michigan, where they swore up and down it would have no impact beyond same-sex marriage, and immediately they saw domestic partnerships repealed in universities.
This is really unfortunate because this is pure deception and deliberate misrepresentation. The Florida Supreme Court has been clear. There is no legal authority to support your opinion whatsoever, Nadine. That's the irony of this. You're pulling it out of the air. The court decisions are very clear, the language is clear, and you can compare them and know this is not going to interfere with domestic partnerships. I can't find a gay activist in this state to debate the public policy merits of gay marriage. You know why? Because they've switched their message. They realize if they debate that issue, they will lose. So they're trying this dastardly tactic of trying to scare senior citizens, saying their benefits are going to be taken away. You know, it's really, you know, it's really a very unfortunate thing because really we can't get to the policy merits of whether or not gay marriage is really in the best interest of children and families and the common good of society.
Okay, well, hold on. I have to take a break. Again, this does come down to not just the politics, but the legalities. But this amendment had to go through the Florida Supreme Court. What does the highest court in our land say about it? That's coming up after this break.